A lot of men don't know how to be there emotionally because we said that they're not allowed to do that. So we have created this dynamic, right, by trying to make boys strong. And then when they are men who are not vulnerable, we're just like, well, you can't meet my needs. You have to let the little boys cry so that the adult men can be there with you when you're crying. People, they want community, they want connection, but they don't know how to be community. Are we celebrating when somebody gets a promotion? When somebody leaves a really bad relationship? The big moments are typically moments for women around family stuff, the things that women tend to do in proximity with men. And if you don't do that, you're left wondering, am I worthy? Me telling you what my boundaries are is me being there for you in this friendship. Because when I cross my boundaries, guess what's going to happen? Resent. There are a lot of us who don't have the language. How do I set the boundary? What I've seen actually mostly, most of us have the language. We don't have the courage. You don't have the courage to be disliked. That's where the work is. The work is in being able to tolerate someone else having less than pleasant feelings about you. The world and your schedule is not going to give you rest. I have to take it and put it in there and deal with the discomfort of not doing. And who tends to carry the invisible labor in any dynamic? It is the female identified person, right? I'm the one who researched podiatrists in the area who take your insurance, who are in 5 miles within your workplace because you only gonna go on your lunch break, right? That's invisible labor.
But what do you tell that woman? How do you start to advocate for yourself? How do you start to put those boundaries in place? What's the first step they can do? Welcome to Vaught Empowers Talks, where we don't just scratch the surface. We dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential change makers. I'm your host, Brandi Harvey. Y'all, the interview has already happened. Y'all about to catch up. I have the beautiful Dr. Ayanna Abrams is a licensed clinical psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia, and the CEO and founder of Ascension Behavioral Health. Dr. Abrams' specialties include working with clients and couples across the African diaspora and caring for those seeking clinical and community care in addressing all forms of systemic oppressive stress, burnout, and interpersonal issues related to poor boundary setting. Dr. Abrams is the co-founder of Not So Strong, an initiative to improve the mental health and relationship functioning of Black women through use of mindfulness and vulnerable storytelling. As a trained, emotionally focused couples therapist, Dr. Abrams helps couples improve short-term and long-term emotional connection and relationship satisfaction. Dr. Abrams has been featured in the New York Times, Essence Magazine, and The Atlantic, just to name a few. Dr. Ayanna believes your biggest lesson will be in your practice of acceptance. Some people will leave. Don't watch them go. Vaught Empowers Talks welcome clinical psychologist, founder, and author, Dr. Ayanna Abrams to the show.
Ooh, I'm like, that's me?
That is you, girl.
That's me. I'm busy. I'm tired. I'm tired. Boundaries. I'm tired. But thank you for that.
I am so excited.
Yes.
We've known each other for years. And so when you walked in here, I don't ever see you in person. And then when she walked in, y'all, I said, you a petite little thing, ain't you?
People forget I am 4'11" and a quarter. The quarter matters. The quarter matters. So, especially the last few years, I'm mostly online.
Yes.
So people don't realize I'm any-mini.
Listen, but all this big stuff is coming out that little petite little body over there.
Big brain energy.
Big brain energy. Come on. Listen. It is. I mean, I had all these themes and stuff that I was going to talk about with you. I just want y'all to know. I had my homework done. But then this is what happens when big brain energy walks into the room.
And Black women.
Listen, it changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so you and I got into this conversation about women and friendships.
Oh, yes.
And it was so fascinating because we both talked about the show White Lotus.
Yes.
And we talked about the friend dynamic in the show. So if you guys aren't familiar, there's a HBO show called White Lotus and 3rd season. But in this season, they had some friends on there.
We going spoilers? You need to warn the folks?
No. If you want to watch it, watch it. If not, it's okay.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about some things. Yes. Actually, I really appreciate that they included this dynamic. And we see it across different shows, but they include the dynamic of a friendship trio.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't realize is widely researched, and more specifically to female friendship triads and trios and different issues that can come up across the lifespan in this 3-person dynamic. And we saw it on White Lotus. Snippets of it. We saw it though.
I mean, I want you to talk because we started talking about females and how we begin in adolescence, really these behaviors that we carry into our friendships and our relationships. What are some of those things that we start early and we don't even know we started?
So there's a lot of research on what's called relational aggression. So we might notice more across the gender, and again, unfortunately, it's a gender binary, right? I don't necessarily believe in a gender binary, but a lot of the research focuses on, cisgender boys and cisgender girls. And we see that boys and men might be more likely to externalize, right, their feelings. So we might see it more in fights with boys, right? We see it more in fights and sports and kind of getting out that tension, right, in those ways.
Oh, I see it in BJ
right?
and Daryl. BJ and his best friend Daryl.
Got it. What you might know now, that don't mean that girls don't fight.
Oh, yeah. Listen,
They fight, right? Women fight. We
yeah.
Right. But what we are more likely to see along this gender binary is what we call relational aggression. So we see more passive aggression in female friendships. The talking behind your back, the saying slick stuff to you, the passing, what we'll see kind of more in school, passing notes about, so well, now it's all electronic and TikTok, right?
Texting.
So we see it on social media, right?
Yeah.
We see sub-tweets and it's not Twitter anymore, but like that's what you might see more, right, from girls and women, not this direct aggressive behavior, but another way to ding you, right, is by affecting how other people relate to you and how other people see you.
That is so this is why the chicks be in the comments with their little snide, little nasty little comments to people you don't even know. Because it's a way to ding you.
It's a way to ding you, and it's passive aggressive, right? And like you said, we see this all throughout school. They're actually noticing this in younger girls. I mean, thinking about my nieces, these are things that are showing up 4 or 5 years old, right? With the possessiveness. This is my friend, not your friend. You come play with me over here, and we're going to exclude that person. So how that affects the trio is that one person gets excluded, right? And in a few months, it might be a different person who gets excluded, but it's this way in which two people are going to band together and find something in common, and sometimes the commonality is against the other person.
Wow.
Right? So that's why the trios can get really murky and messy, because somebody's going to feel really left out, and now it can also now create this mistrust. Because when that third person is maybe brought back into the fold, I've had the experience of where A and B and C got up from the table and A and B was talking mess about C, right? Yeah. But now C is at a different table with B and knows that, oh, there's this thing that can happen because we were talking mess about her when she got up from the table, which means y'all could talk mess about me when I get up from the table, and I don't have anybody to talk to about this. Yeah, that's the harder parts about the trio. Who am I going to talk to about this? Because it's you two and it's me over here. If there's a quad, if there's a larger group, we can do some like subgroup stuff and maybe come to some, kind of conflict resolutions. But when it's 3 of us, the other person has nobody to talk to. So they either have to keep it to themselves or they find another group or another person, right? But all that feels really risky because they want to be back in their trio.
I mean, because really, we see it now. I mean, it's super prevalent all on social media, all the research, all the data, especially post-COVID, connection. Everybody's looking for connection. Everybody's looking for community. Everyone is looking for a soft place to land, right? But when we're thinking about creating, sustaining, relationships, what are those dynamics that we really all should be like, it gotta have this?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point, because what we see a lot is people are, again, they want community, they want connection, but they don't know how to be community.
Ooh.
They want it, right? So I'll oftentimes having, kind of conversation with clients, with groups, with kind of in different dynamics. Do you want people around you, or do you want to be in relationship with people, right? So a lot of people want friendship, but they don't really know much about being a friend. They just want, right, the benefits of friendship, right? So we were talking earlier about listening. Like, do you have listening skills?
Yeah. Right?
So if you are not thinking about how I can be in community, then we got to kind of look at that a little bit first before you can receive all the benefits of community.
I mean, that's the same thing when they talk about you want to be in a relationship with a man or a woman, right? How are you with you?
Yes.
Because you just want somebody to say you got somebody.
Yes, and that is very different than being somebody to somebody else and being in a relationship, again, with people, right? So the things that we, benefit from in community is, again, I don't feel alone in doing major parts of my life, right? So usually we tend to actually kind of focus on big moments, but a lot of community and connection is created in small, mundane moments.
Yeah.
Do I have somebody to call and talk to about my mornings, right? Do I have somebody to call on the commute somewhere? Do I have somebody to say, oh, I just found this at the grocery store, or somebody to, run errands with, right? I love errands and friendship stuff. Like, hey, I'm doing this and this and this today. You want to come with me? And we'll pop in and grab food in between. Like, those are those, like, mundane things.
It's Carly for me, Doc.
Okay.
I'm literally at your sitting. I'm like, Carly. Who do you call? I go into the grocery store. Carly. Who's your errand person? Carly.
Right? That is, you have that community, right? Those are also really important, and those are just as important as the person to call when there is a relationship end, right? The person to call when there is a promotion at work, the person to call when something kind of really awful happens, when there's some type of loss or transition in some way, right? Do you have people who can be in both spaces for you? And that's important, and it's also important to recognize that there are going to be some people who are going to be just in this space. And that's it. You my brunch buddy.
Yeah.
But we only do brunch.
Yeah.
I'm never going to talk to you about my family.
Yes.
Right?
I have friends like that.
And it's fine to have friendships that are like that. It doesn't mean that those friendships are any lower maintenance than other friendships, but it's about also knowing where people can fit in your life, and everybody can't be the person who has all the intimacy and all the depth and all those things, right? But that also connects to knowing that you're also that in other people's lives. So you might be somebody's brunch person.
Yeah.
And are you okay with that? If you want a different kind of friendship, you got to tell them that you want something deeper or create something deeper with them. Do you want something? Do you have friends who are vacation friends? I got some people I can travel with, some people I cannot travel with, right? And just because I've known you for years doesn't mean that we could live together.
Right.
That might ruin the friendship, right? So you also have to do this kind of, you have to have this level of self-awareness to know who you can do what with and where you want people to be. And it's also the piece of, as we move through our lives, our friendships change, our needs change. What does it mean to have those very clear conversations with friendships about this friendship now looks like this, and are we okay with that? You might have been my person who I hung out with all the time on the weekends, and now there's been a life transition. Somebody has a significant other. Somebody has had children. Somebody has moved away, right? So now you're my person who I talk to on my commutes, but I don't see as much. Now you're my person who will always come to all my birthday events, but you're not my Sunday brunch person anymore. And how do we not only own that, but how do we also talk about that in the friendship versus, well, I'm feeling some type of way because I only see you on blank, 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 blank. Well, did you tell them that you wanted to see them more? Or did you just feel like this and then you're building up resent for them and then it comes out at some whatever, right? Did you tell them you want to stay close to them?
Yeah.
Right?
Doesn't it come out in the resentment?
It comes out in the resentment.
You said something because we were talking about this before we got started on camera. And you mentioned just now, the person you can call on your commute or that person you can call and tell about your day. And we were talking before, and Jada was talking about the trauma dumping. We kind of talked about the trauma dumping.
Let's go there, please.
And are you that person that when you call, someone else, and you just start throwing up everything? You didn't say, hey, what you got going on today? Hey, you in a good space? Are you good? How you doing? You just start spilling out.
Yeah.
And so that can be very exhausting in relationships.
Absolutely. Right. And especially as you were noting before, the ways in which that can show up in friendships, right? We want to be there for people. We want them to be able to have access to us, to be able to share and vent and, be this kind of safe person, this kind of soft landing place for them. But it takes two people to navigate that, right? So I think it is really important for you to look at, am I the person who calls, right, and doesn't say, and doesn't ask, right? Essentially what we're talking about is like asking consent, right? Asking for if you can actually be a vessel for what I want to share. There's a number of ways to ask that, right? It can be, hey, do you have 10 minutes, right? I really need to vent about something just happened, and I just want to be able to dump this all. I don't need advice. I don't need this. I just want to get this out of my system, right? And there's two parts of that. One, many people are going to say yes, right? Because most people want to help and be there for you. But how are you going to take care of yourself if that person says no?
Ooh.
And that's part of it.
Because we don't expect to know.
We don't expect to know.
We don't expect to know.
That doesn't make them a bad friend if they say, no, I don't have it right now. No, I'm not available. No, I'm about to rush into this, right? How do we respect people's boundaries when they do say that, thanks for asking me, but I can't really talk about that right now. I'm going through something over here and I can't really be the space for that, whether that be about something that is, quote unquote, I had to use traumatic loosely because I think we're using it too much in some ways, whether that is something that could potentially be like vicarious trauma to someone, whether that is venting about something that they've been struggling with for years, right? Asking that consent, what do I do next if this person that I have chosen that I want to be available isn't actually available to me? Do I have another person? Do I have another person to call? Do I have any other skills or tools in this? Or did I fully depend on this person to be there? And now because I don't have another recourse, I'm now mad at you for not being there.
You never there for me. Wait a minute. How we get never?
How we get to never?
How we get to never?
How we get to never? Unless that's other, right? But how do we get to never mean, oh, I wasn't able to be there for you in that moment. But being there for you was also telling you the truth. That I couldn't listen to that story. Doesn't mean I'm not there for you.
Yeah.
That means I didn't have room for that particular need in that moment. That doesn't mean I wasn't there for you, right? Me telling you what my boundaries are is me being there for you in this friendship. Because when I cross my boundaries, guess what's going to happen? Resent. If I keep crossing my boundaries to be able to listen to you in all these moments when I don't have it, it's going to affect our friendship. And that's me not being there for you.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there for me first.
That's so good. Because do I have room for this? I think that's it's a simple question to ask yourself in those moments. It's a simple question, but it is so weighty. Yeah. Do I have room for this? Because there have been moments, I mean, literally, Doc, this was a couple weeks ago. I got a text message from a friend that a whole paragraph text message telling me about an illness and everything else, a disease. I was about to come film the show that day. I'm literally sitting there doing my makeup to come and film the show.
And boom.
I don't have room for this.
I don't have room for this.
I don't have room for this.
I don't have room for this right
now.
Right now.
Right now, I can't do it. And I think like because I did not respond initially, I was literally filming that day, the next day. I was like, I can't give to that right now. And in order for me to like, because I know myself and because I have boundaries, I'm able to say like to myself, like, hey, I was like, hey, I don't have the time right now to do this. Like, so it took me 2 days to get back. But of course now they're
upset.
They resent me.
They're upset.
Yeah.
They are upset, right? Because what can happen is that again, we might feel like we're in crisis, something is urgent. That's not someone else's urgency. Yeah. They've got their own life to navigate, and understandably, it doesn't mean that we are bad or wrong for doing this, right? That we want our urgency to be urgent for everyone else.
Yeah.
My life just stopped because this thing happened. Other people's lives didn't stop because something happened to you.
Yeah.
Right? So they still do have to fit this relationship and how to support you in their other stuff, right? And you get to decide where I fit in your life.
Yeah.
I don't get to decide.
Yeah.
But what happens in that moment is that I've determined that because something's happening to me, you need to be there.
And you know, too, Doc, let me bring context to this, because I know it's going to be somebody in them comments like, oh, Brandi ain't never her friend. No, Negro. That ain't it. Let me bring some context to this. Let me bring it home, Doc.
Yes.
In this friendship with this person, there has been no communication. I've reached out to them. Like, I've been like, hey, what's going on? Like, hey, is everything okay? Like, nothing. And so this type of behavior has been going on for months now.
And now they needed
something.
something.
And so now it was like you dumped all of this in a paragraph 5-page letter text. And I was like, oh,
where have you been?
I don't even know where to put this right now.
Wow.
Because I can't give into the emotion of this, because I can't come in here and I've been crying and giving into all of that.
But you've also had emotions, I imagine, building up, maybe from feeling ignored or feeling overlooked and not feeling.
Listen.
Oh, now that's a different dynamic.
So just for context, audience, it went like, oh, girl, that man that called you and told you
Wow.
It's been some things. And so in that moment, then you dump all of this, and now everybody's supposed to just stop and do, well, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of something that my world is turning
Yeah.
as the world turns, as
Yep.
you said.
Yep. And you're mentioning two things, right? I'm in the middle of something here, and I've been hurt by you.
Mm.
So now one, if the person is even thinking about, right, how they may have been hurting you by ignoring you, by not responding to things. Now what you are expected to do and need to do is that I need to move through my hurt to now be there for you immediately. Immediately.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not easy work to do. So I can appreciate you naming that boundary, right? But there's this history that said I've been hurt and I'm expected to ignore how you have treated me so I can show up for you.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like friendship.
No.
That doesn't feel like friendship.
No.
Right?
And that was the conclusion. And I think there's
that's
so many
hard.
people, right? I think that once we start to become more and more aware of ourselves,
Yes.
right? That self-awareness,
First
that self-regulation,
Mhm.
that not just moving with the emotion all the time, right?
Mhm.
When we can honestly, like, okay, let's be logical for a minute. Let's use our big old brains, for a
Yep.
minute, and see how we can navigate this better.
Yeah.
Like many people just don't have that boundary script, and you give the boundary scripts
Yes.
a lot.
Yes.
On your Instagram, if y'all not following Dr. Ayanna, she giving you whole boundary script. She's telling you to pick a color, baby. She giving you all the things, okay? But real tools, because oftentimes we don't have the script.
Yes.
We don't have the language to be able to either, one, regulate ourselves, and then two, be able to navigate in relationship with other people.
Yes, and so I obviously I love the boundary scripts that I offer, and I've seen, across what I'm seeing, clinically in my practice, what I'm seeing socially, and what I talk to particularly a lot of Black women about when it relates to boundaries is that there are a lot of us who don't have the language, right? We don't have the practice in this. We oftentimes don't know what to say. How do I set the boundary? How do I do this? What I've seen actually mostly is that most of us have the language. We don't have the courage. So the question I get the most when it comes to boundary setting is, how do I say this, and this without making them upset? That tells me you have the language. And what I'll say is that, well, you just said it to me. You know exactly what you want. You know exactly what the problem is. You know when it started. You know the time that it started. You know how much it pisses you off. You know how much money you lost. You know all the things. You don't have the courage to be disliked. You don't have the courage to deal with somebody being upset with you. You don't have the courage to move through the conflict with them. Right? So I would say that the majority of people actually do have so the boundary scripts help. They do have the language. They don't have the courage to go in and take this risk and be vulnerable and say, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's two different things that the boundary scripts can help with, but I think more people struggle with the courage and not the language.
That is so good. Because it takes courage.
It takes courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. The boundary practice takes courage. Like I said, people will line it out very clearly. Oftentimes we know when something has crossed the line. Our body tells us in some way. We feel uncomfortable. We feel scared about something. We feel angry about something. We feel annoyed. We're complaining about something. We know what the line is. We get into our heads that person can't handle me towing the line or setting the boundary. And that's what stops us, right? Because we're trying to control how the other person responds. I'm only going to set a boundary if I have a guarantee that they're going to approve it, they're going to like it, they're going to be okay with it. Most people aren't going to be okay with you making a change, particularly if it affects them and they got to move around and do something different. It's not my responsibility to make sure that you approve of my needs. And usually that's what we're waiting for and looking for. So if you're not going to approve it, I'm not even going to set it because they're going to get mad. They're going to do this and this and this, and I don't even want to deal with it. Okay. But you're dealing with this.
That's it. We are just... Listen.
That's where the work is. The work is in being able to tolerate someone else having less than pleasant feelings about you, right? And if you are a people pleaser, even if you're not a certified people pleaser, it's very difficult to feel, right? Like we've disappointed someone. We don't want to make people upset with us, but there will come a time, and there will come many times, particularly in adulthood, where the intersection of me meeting my needs and it disappointing someone is an intersection I'm going to be at regularly.
oftentimes we see it, especially with when you see the studies out here, the research. Lord, when you say a study on the internet, okay, what study?
What study?
The research. What research?
What study? What's the link?
Link? Everybody go to Harvard now. So anyway,
y'all be studying on TikTok. That's the issue.
Listen, the study happens on TikTok, but women over 40, right?
I just got there. So.
I know I'm there. I'm in the early stages, of a woman over 40. It's early. But they say that the statistics are that this is when the rise of divorce happens with women, that 45, So they're like leaving marriages. They're having greater autonomy over their bodies. They know what they want. They're like
their finances.
They know who they are. They've built this life, and now they're finally comfortable enough to live and walk freely in it. But how do we get there sooner? Like, what do you tell the 20-something, 30-something-year-old woman who may be out there, and it might be the 40 because you might not be there yet, and that's okay. That's okay. But what do you tell that woman? How do you start to advocate for yourself? How do you start to put those boundaries in place? What's the first step they can do?
As we've been talking about, the first step is the self-awareness. A lot of people jump to the no, and I don't like this, and I'm not going to do this no more. That's a fine part of this, and usually we kind of swing to the other end of the pendulum and then need to pull back a little bit because that's not a boundary, baby. That's a wall. You done cut a whole bunch of people off, and now you mad and lonely and like wondering why you ain't got nobody to talk to. Well, you done cussed everybody out. Like, that's not the way to do this.
That's
right?
Not a boundary.
Yeah,
that's a wall.
That's a wall. Oftentimes we go a little bit too far. We overcorrect. That's how we learn things, right? Some people overcorrect, and now you by yourself, right? So it starts with that self-awareness, and I'll oftentimes kind of do this in practice with my clients or my patients. Do you even know what you like and what you don't like? Right? A lot of us are so used to ignoring ourselves in order to be in relationship with people, whether that be parents or siblings or romantic partnerships or friends or work colleagues. We are so used to ignoring ourselves, right? That I will talk to people about like, well, what do you like about this person? And they'll say, like, I don't know, they're cool. And I'm like, do you have criteria? Are there is there any criteria for this person being able to take up space in your life? And they'll say, well, they're nice to me. And I'm like, is that it? Is that the only criteria? Is that they're nice to you or that they call you? Is that again, that's part of it. There's a part of the attentiveness and the responsiveness, but is that it? Like, are you more focused on them liking you so that you haven't even thought about whether you like them?
Wow.
I have so many people who are focused on being liked that I'll be like, do you like him? Do you know anything about him enough to like him? Well, I want him to like me. I want the attention of that because that gives me some sense of security. It's a false sense of security. But when I ask people, do you like them and what are the qualities and what are the criteria that they meet? The criteria is real vague, or it's like one or two criteria.
Yeah.
They call me back, they're nice to me, or what I see actually about a lot of Black women, we will stay in relationship with people because they don't get in the way of stuff. They don't bother me. So like I could talk to them about what's going on. They don't bother me. And I'm just like, is that the criteria?
What does that mean? They don't bother me.
They don't get in the way of stuff. So like I can talk to them. Like it doesn't I can go on a date with them. I can, hang out with them this weekend. It's no like big thing. I don't get much from it though. I'm just like, well, what does that mean to make room for something that you don't get? And it doesn't mean we have to get something from everything, but what does it mean to make quite a significant amount of room for people that you don't maybe get a lot? You don't get a lot out of this relationship, but they're getting a lot from you in this relationship. What does it mean to like allow things to take up space that are just there as like fillers, right? And like I said, when I go back to this question about the criteria, oftentimes the criteria isn't descriptive. It is, they're fine, it's cool enough, it's something to do, it gets my mind off of this or this or this, but does it fulfill you?
Doesn't fulfill you.
Does it enhance any part of your life, or is it just something to do? And so it shows up with friendship, and it shows up a lot with romantic relationships, but particularly in the category of friendship. Do you feel is this a person you can call, right, when things go south? Is this a person you can share your wins with? Right, versus like, no, I would never share that with them.
That's so good because I think too, and I've experienced this in relationship with men, the sharing the wins. That's the moment when I find out, oh, this ain't my person.
Yes.
Because Because you getting real in your feelings about me winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you even hold space for my wins? Or do you say, oh, congratulations, and go on to something else, right? Can you celebrate the wins? And what does celebration even look like for you kind of when you're in relation to someone else? We tend to, particularly when it comes to women, this usually is very, very gendered, right? We see that we have parties for very specific things.
Yeah.
It's got to do with baby and it's got to do with marriage. Right,
Mm-hmm.
those are the main criteria. I think we're getting a little bit better where we're celebrating other things, but it usually has to do with work or something more familial where society has said these are the things as a woman that you're supposed to do, so we're going to celebrate these things, right? What about women who aren't having those experiences?
Yeah.
Right? Are we celebrating when somebody gets a promotion? Right? Are we celebrating when somebody leaves a really bad relationship
Yeah.
and they fought like hell to get out of that relationship, right? Are we celebrating when people set a different boundary and like do something hard for them, right?
Yeah.
Getting a better grade on a test, right? Again, leaving a job, right, that was really harmful to you, whatever it might be, right? A parenting win. Do we tend to celebrate those? No, we don't throw parties
Yeah.
for those things, right? We're just relieve you out of that relationship because I'm sick of you talking about it.
Girl.
We're not gonna throw you a party.
Doc, that's so good because one of my single friends, she and I, we've been friends since college, line sisters, and neither one of us is married and we don't have children. So of course, like, hey girl, hey, what's up, girl? But we've talked about this and we're like, okay, so what if we not getting no wedding shower or no baby shower?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, okay, well, your birthday. People celebrate you for your birthday.
Yeah.
But they're not celebrating you when you're like, oh, I just hit this milestone with my show or I just did this. They're not giving you that.
Nope.
Because that doesn't feel like that's big enough.
Yes. It doesn't feel like it's big enough, and it's not traditionally what society has said. We give kudos to women, right, for these things, right? We don't celebrate people when, hey, they just got out of a whole bunch of debt, right? Let's have a dinner kind of around that. We just kind of say these things and be like, yeah, great job, right? But the big moments, again, are typically moments for women around family stuff because that's what society has traditionally said. Like, those are things you're supposed to do, and those are great accomplishments or achievements in some way. But what about all the other aspects of our lives that are also important, right? And again, whether or not you choose to not have those experiences, whether or not you are unable to have those experiences, it sends a message to women that you are only valued when you do these specific things, right? You are valued for procreation, right? And you are valued, and typically valued for staying closer in proximity to men.
Yeah.
Right. So again, there's weddings and all that kind of stuff, right? But we all know that there's a whole bunch of anti-gay stuff and legislation and kind of anti-trans, all that kind of stuff, right? But the celebration of the things that women tend to do in proximity with men, that has been the trend. And if you don't do that, you're left wondering, am I worthy? Am I valuable?
Yeah.
Am I important? Right? Do people see the things that are important to me? And the large message is no, not until you do those things.
It's so real because, of course, at this big age, at 42, you feel it, right? You see it, Of
Women
course,
feel more and more invisible as they get older. Yeah.
You do. And it's like I was at a dinner and I ran into a friend of mine who recently celebrated her 45th birthday. And she's not married, doesn't have any children, lives a phenomenal life. I mean, a very accomplished woman. And she was like, Brandi, I am so afraid of aging. And I was like, when she said it, I was like, really? She was like, I am so afraid of aging. And when I thought about it, I got in the car, Doc, after I left that dinner, and I was like, hell, I think I am too.
Yeah. Of course we would be, right? Because look, and particularly when it comes to, this can go in so many different directions, right? So there's a gender dynamic as it comes to aging and how society views it. Again, who is valued? Women are less and less valued, right? As we become older, men are more and more valued. They're just seen as having more status because they're older. They ain't got to do nothing else. They ain't got to do nothing
They
else.
Become the silver fives.
Very low-hanging fruit, right?
Stately,
but because they're
so
seen as grown in this. That don't mean he's any type of stable. That don't mean he's kind. That don't mean he's well in any way, but he's older. So he has this status, right? Women become more and more invisible as they get older, right? And then we kind of bring in ways in which women also become invisible because we're usually taking care of other people and centering other people, right? We're also used to becoming that level of invisible. So the anxiety is very real. Think about how long, and we're around the same age, we have heard about anti-aging our entire lives.
Your whole life.
Our entire lives.
You have been prepping for this moment.
Yes, right? And again, you haven't been prepping for this moment. You've been attempting to avoid this moment. You haven't been prepared for aging.
No.
You're not. We are not prepared to age, right? We are prepared to avoid it and to hold it off at all costs. Since I can, the first message you received was probably the first time you looked at an ad on TV and in a magazine. There's anti-aging
eye cream, wrinkles, soft skin.
Cream.
Yes.
There's certain lotions for certain parts of your body to get rid of
youthful
cellulite and varicose
skin.
veins. There are surgical procedures. There are non-surgical procedures, whether it's in your cheek or your jaw or your butt or whatever it is, right? All of these things, right, to avoid what they see is the issue with aging, right? Again, which is the devaluement, right, of women as you get older. We see it in Hollywood. We see it in our personal lives. We see, what society understands as, men's midlife crisis. They go for a younger, right? We see all these ways in which we are not
I must be going
valued.
through a midlife because I just want the younger men. Listen, where the YNs?
There's a social dynamic, right, around wanting to avoid this, right? So we're seeing a lot of women who are aging reclaim a lot of things. We're seeing older models. We're seeing older actors. They're oftentimes not paid as much, right?
No.
But that's another way in which you can see this kind of devaluing. So we're seeing a lot of these different things, but the message is still largely there, right, about you want to avoid looking like your age. So you will be 45, 50, this or this. One of the first, you don't look your age.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that's seen as a compliment.
Yeah.
Right? It's not okay to look your age once you're past a certain age. And what does it mean when that's the biggest growing population? Because people are living longer.
That's it. I mean, but that also leads to how most women, we look at mental health, depression, the numbers, anxiety is number one for women.
Absolutely.
Number one.
Absolutely.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And that starts at even a younger age, right? So there are a number of factors, right, into why more, again, we're having gender binary, but why more women are likely to be diagnosed or are diagnosed than men. One, hormonal changes, right? So obviously beginning in adolescence, we're noticing hormonal changes with our estrogen, with our progesterone, and with our testosterone, right? Women have more of those hormonal fluctuations, right? And those are a larger factor than I think medicine has given it credit for, because now we're hearing all these conversations more about perimenopause and menopause, and we can do a whole nother segment on that in mental health. But that begins to happen in prepubescence and adolescence, where you're noticing that, right? And that can come with irritability. That can come with physical discomfort. That can come with a very clear drop in your neurotransmitters, so it's going to show up different in your mood, right? Hormones are a central kind of force in all of those things, right? So as you're moving through life, more hormonal fluctuations than men. Two, we were talking about a little bit earlier, different kind of daily stresses and kind of relationship stresses women are more likely to internalize. Right? It's something that I need to do something with. It's something that's wrong with me. That's why this isn't working out. But who taught women that we're the problem? Who taught women that we're the problem? Men. Right? That is the biggest dupe of how many generations, centuries, is that women are the emotional ones. Now, I know we've all seen emotional men.
Girl.
Men have emotions. Men show emotions.
Listen.
Men have maladaptive patterns of coping with their emotions. But what we hear is that women are emotional, which is why they can't be in leadership. They can't run for office. They shouldn't be the head of this. They shouldn't be able to take care of this, right? They should just be in the home because they're too emotional. We see the impact of having men who are emotional in leadership, don't we? Right? We see companies fall, and we see this stuff all the time, but they are not penalized for their emotional states, right?
Very true.
We see what men do when they are navigating really difficult emotions, but that's more socially acceptable to drink when you're upset.
Yeah, so it's the drinking, the substance abuse, the aggression, the violence. That's what men...
The sexual acting, all right? Those kinds of things, right? And those are things that we are used to kind of, accepting with masculinity, right? We accept it from a young age. Boys will be boys. These little sayings that we learn from a very, very young age turn into really poor patterns, right, in adulthood, right? Women are nurturers, women are emotional, men are this and this and this, and then we wonder why we're so separate and why we don't have these understandings about each other versus these are children that you are grooming to be a certain way. You're grooming women to be nurturers because you don't let boys cry.
Yeah.
Right? You are grooming, right, women to be caretakers in this way because when something happens, well, you got to take care of such and such and so and so and take care of the doll babies and make sure nobody's upset with you and all this stuff. That is socialized behavior. That's not necessarily biological, right, in those ways. But then we see this chasm, right, between genders and we wonder, like, why did we get so far apart? That starts at age 2, 3, 4, 5 when we're teaching these messages about what good boys do and what strong boys do and what nice girls do, right? So nice girls are quiet, they cry in the corner, they make sure they're likable, they make sure they have friends, and boys, you play with your trucks, you do your this, you fight back when somebody bothers you, right? They're all this. So again, relational aggression in girls, because girls are not taught to fight back physically, because that's acting like a boy. I have a childhood a friend who has a daughter who's a wrestler. Right? High accolades in wrestling. And people will always have a hard time with her. She's a wrestler and a football player.
Wow.
Right? That is typically seen as masculine, but she's the only one there, right? She received a lot of messages that she's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Right? You are supposed to be with the girls and you can play soccer, you can play lacrosse, you could do cheerleading. You're not supposed to be here because this is gendered and this is for boys to do. Right? But when we grow up in a society or when we're in a society where we told boys that they can't experience emotions other than anger and maybe some forms of happiness because men can't be too happy because then we call you sassy.
Yeah,
right?
oh, he's so sassy.
What are they supposed to do? Right?
He can't drink a margarita.
Yeah.
He can't drink a lemon drop. It's too sassy.
It's too fruity. It's too
Lord
this,
have
right?
mercy.
But then we are now in close relationship with men, whether romantically or our brothers or our fathers or our colleagues or our bosses, and they have no emotional skill to be able to meet our needs, and then we're mad at them. You can't have a conversation about this or this and this. I need you to be there for me. Who taught him?
I don't know how. What do you want?
How they gonna get there?
Yeah.
They're not gonna let. And again, so it leads to this kind of later in life or kind of adulthood dynamic where a lot of men don't know how to be there emotionally, right? For people in their lives or for themselves because we said that they're not allowed to do that. So like we have created this dynamic, right, by trying to make boys, strong. And then when they are men who are not vulnerable, we're just like, well, you can't meet my needs. Well, we can't have it. We can't have it both ways. You're going to have to let the little boys cry, right, so that the adult men can be there with you when you're crying.
Yeah.
But if I can't cry myself, I don't know what to do when you start crying.
Yeah.
I just needed to stop.
Yeah.
I needed to stop. I'm going into a panic. I'm avoiding it. I don't want to deal with girl, right, all this kind of stuff. But if they can't cry themselves, they're not going to be able to respond to, right, when that level of emotion is showing up in a relationship. This kind of relationship and parenting their children and being there for their male friends, right? We heard recently, I think the Surgeon General put out a report, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, right, that we're in an epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah.
Right? And what I heard more recently, which I probably shouldn't be chuckling because people are going to call me racist on this thing, and I don't think black people can be racist, and that's a whole other conversation. You had Dr. Joy on here before.
Yeah.
We could talk about it. And I think she would agree with me. But they have now also said that there's an epidemic of cisgendered white men feeling really lonely because the world is against white men now. And I said, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Y'all are experiencing the consequences of y'all's behaviors.
Well.
Across centuries where you set yourself apart from everybody and said, we're the best, we're the this, we don't need this, and da-da-da, all y'all are peasants. And now you at the top of stuff and you by yourself.
Yeah, imagine that.
You're lonely.
Yeah.
And what we're actually seeing and noticing if you study relation, and I work with couples, so I see this, right, all the time, is that there is, since the women's liberation movement, and as more black women are taking better care of this, it's a slow game, right, taking better care of ourselves, we are leaving different kinds of relationships with men, right, because now we're requiring men to have more skills. And men are like, what?
Yeah.
I have to have a personality?
That's it. And that's where so many of my friends in my friends group, and that's the 30-something, women that I'm friends with to the 50-something women.
The college girls are getting hip too.
The college girls, they got TikTok, baby. They
that's
got
it.
Is. They like, oh no, you got to come better. Okay. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I need more from you.
I need more from you.
I need more from you. And if you're not willing to give me that, I'm going to go over here.
I will leave you.
I will leave you.
And that was not the case before. I couldn't leave you because I didn't have a bank account till the 70s.
Didn't have a bank account, couldn't get a credit card.
I couldn't leave you before.
I could not.
Right? Marriage is about this transfer from my daddy to you.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't do this before. I would not be able to take care of myself legally. Like there was legislation that was against me being able to be an autonomous being. Right? Now that has changed, I will leave you. And that's a huge, huge threat to the male psyche, right? And when men are just like, again, I need to be interesting. I mean, I have had some clients of patients say like, you want me to be interesting?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I do want you to be interesting. And what happened there was that she didn't require you to be interesting when she first met you. Right? She wanted to be with you. She wanted to be chosen. She didn't require you to be interesting.
That's so...
She didn't require you to be careful with her.
She wanted to be chosen.
She wanted to be chosen.
So
she didn't require you.
She let these little bum jokes go at the table. But
You're not funny.
You are not
interesting.
Baby, I'm bored out of my mind.
I'm bored. I'm bored, so I am now leaving because my friends are more interesting than you. I am interesting to myself. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to go get a compound with my homegirls. We're going to go get us a house together and live.
And this will be interesting, right? And I will also kind of try to gravitate towards men who have lived some life and like done some things, right? But now there's a requirement for you to have some higher level of emotional intelligence. I need you to be able to take care of yourself. I am not your caretaker. I'm not your self-care plan, right? So we do see more women, right, are leaving relationships. But I do think that everything needs nuance, all right? So we're seeing all these statistics that are oftentimes used against women that say, you know, women are leaving relationships more. Women are divorcing more. What I've seen in the research, but also what I see clinically and kind of anecdotally in my practice is that women are leaving or kind of, you know, signing divorce papers at a higher rate than they used to. But that's after also a really, really long time of men disappearing from relationships. So what I'm actually seeing is that men are
disappearing.
So what we saw even in the first phase of the pandemic, kind of moving into pandemic, divorce rates went up. So a lot of the research has shown, just the kind of headline stat that said that, you know, women are divorcing men more, right? Kind of in the pandemic, women are seeing that. Look how much I do, and you expect me to do more. Now the kids are home. I'm teaching the kids. And I'm working.
And I'm the lunch. I'm the lunch maid. I'm doing all of it.
And you expect me to still do all the tricks. Back here and back there while I'm scared about COVID. I'm scared about a family member. This is happening over here, right? So I'm expected to kind of carry this large load. It's really becoming revealed how much you don't do. In here, with them, for me, with me. Big revelation came in COVID for a lot of families, right? So they noticed that women were divorcing more men. And that the nuance in there is that women aren't divorcing men because they, you know, got to liberation. I'm just tired of this and I'm done. Women are divorcing men because you haven't been, right, an equal part in this relationship for years and maybe for decades. I'm leaving that, right? It's not this kind of easy and quick decision where women are saying like, yeah, I'm just getting a divorce kind of all willy-nilly. It's because I have now felt pushed to have to leave you because I'm depressed, because I'm suicidal. And me staying in this relationship, I am not getting any better. It's now becoming a risk to my health to stay in this relationship.
Wow.
Right? I'm not leaving at the top of my game and I just feel great and like, I'm just so much better than you and I'm out of this. It's because you either haven't been an equal or an active participant in this relationship for a long time, or you have more recently actually left this relationship passive-aggressively. You don't talk to me. You don't ask me what's going on. You don't know the kid's shoe size, right? You are not interested in me, and that's why I'm leaving, but you have pushed me to do this. And the other piece of that is oftentimes what we will see, and again, this is more anecdotally than research, men will leave relationships, but they won't sign the divorce papers.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends.
Women are willing to sign the divorce papers, saying like, oh, here's something else I got to do for us. I'm also going to have to be the one who forges through and does a divorce because you're not going to do the divorce.
No, because I do want to flip this too, Doc, because as much as it is women leaving relationships, but then we need men, right? I'm not now, Doc. I ain't one of them people like I ain't one of them girls, baby. I need a man, honey. I ain't
fiercely independent. I don't need no man.
I need a man. So,
well, what do you mean by need?
I need the companionship and love of a man. I enjoy I enjoy male energy.
Okay.
I enjoy the exchange with a man. That exchange that I don't get from my female relationships.
Okay.
I enjoy that with men. And so even for people who are like, look, ain't no way either one of us is leaving this relationship. So give us the tools. What we got to do to be better? How is Dayshawn over there gonna be better to Keisha? How is John gonna be better to Jay? How can they do it? What is something they can start to ask themselves in partnership?
I was gonna say, well, Dayshawn and John need to take better care of themselves first, right? Because oftentimes what I see women asking is like, I just want you to take care of yourself, and then we can figure out what's in the middle of this. Because until you are taking care of yourself, I am taking care of you and me and them and the community. I'm a deaconess in the church. I'm a this and da-da-da-da, right? All these things. Oftentimes what we're asking for is that you make your own doctor's appointments. I would like you to do that.
Doc, they ain't gonna do that.
I would like you, but that's the issue, right?
He don't know the doctor number. He don't know the doctor number.
He don't know the doctor number.
Baby, that's what you for. That's what
this is. You pulled it up earlier. I cannot be your self-care plan. You have to have your own self-care plan. And what has happened largely is that I'm the one who's making sure that you are fed. I'm the one, again, making sure, right? I'm the one who is making sure that there's food around. I am calling your doctors and kind of making these doctors, because I'm the one who has this invisible labor. Like, when was your last time you went to the urologist? We're 45 now. When's the last time you did this or this or this? You've been complaining about something with your foot. I'm the one who researched podiatrists in the area who take your insurance, who are in 5 miles within your workplace, because you only gonna go on your lunch break, right? That's invisible labor. And who tends to carry the invisible labor in any dynamic? It is the female identified person, right? And that invisible labor is laborious, right? But we teach you that you don't have to make your own doctor's appointment, because I've done it for the last 5 years, 10 years, however long we've been together, right? We also see it in, there's a term for it, I think it might be called kinship stuff. So where women in heterosexual marriages, I'm also the one keeping you close with your family members. I'm the one who's getting gifts for your parents at Christmas. I'm the one who knows all the nieces and nephews' birthdays on your side. I'm the one who knows when they're graduating. We got to book a flight to get to their graduation, right? It's the way in which I am taking care of even how you show up in your relationships. Which means that you are not learning how to do that. And you're not dealing with the fallout of not caring about nobody in your life.
I think that's the part that many people do try to glaze over, Doc, is how intense that feeling is. Of
it
like,
is laborious.
I'm worried about me. I got my own health. I gotta get to the dentist. I gotta get to the doctor. I gotta go to the gyno. I gotta do all the things. Then I gotta worry about the kids, making sure they get to the dentist, the doctor, the orthodontist. I set the schedule. Then I gotta make sure you.
I have all of your appointments on my calendar, right? There's a her name is Eve Rodsky. She's got a game called Fair Play. Have you heard of it? I use it with a lot of my couples. It is literally this card game, and I think she also had to make it a card game because it might be men don't. There's a fair assumption that men are not going to watch the documentary or read the damn book. So she made it a card game, right? Because the visual is right here, right? So it's a card game.
We can open up a bottle of wine, you know.
It's a card game that we can play where the cards have different responsibilities and tasks of a household and of a family. And we are literally looking at how many cards are in my hand and how many cards are in your hand. Your card, you might have 2 men, right? You might have 2. I have 8 cards in my hand. It makes this very, very clear delineation of like what is going on here, and then we can maybe have some headway right around what needs to be different here. Because I have many, many cards in my hand, and you have this many cards. But if I were to ask you before this game how much you do in this household, you would say that you do so much. So she has this really, really great example. Like I said, the game, the documentary,
and it's called
Fair Play.
Fair Play.
Fair Play.
It's a card game.
And she has this really, really great example that I heard her mention on a podcast, maybe like last year or 2 years ago, where you can ask the husband, you ask the wife. That's still very heteronormative, right? You ask the husband and the wife. I think it was an example like, how did the mustard get in the fridge? Right? You might know where I'm going with this, but how did the mustard get in the fridge? And he says, I put the mustard in the fridge because I went grocery shopping, right? And she says, I put the mustard in the fridge. I made the grocery list, right? I had to track these 3 kids like 3 different types of mustard, right? You like Dijon, you like honey, you like spicy. I'm also the one in the fridge looking to see the Dijon's about to be out. That's why it made it to the list. But because I gave you the grocery list and because you went to the store for 45 minutes, I put the mustard in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's such a clear example of the invisible labor. I'm the one tracking everything, right? And you are the one who does this piece. I wish I could just be the one to go to the grocery store. Please send me to the grocery store 45 minutes without these kids.
Yeah.
Please send me to the grocery store. And I just got to pick stuff that's already on a list for me. I just got to go up and down
You
the
wrote,
aisle.
and I didn't write the list.
I didn't
sit
write the list.
in the parking lot on my notes.
Yes.
To write the list.
Yes. And guess what happened? You still called me at the grocery store and said, "What's the brand? Or what aisle?"
This what you mean
Dijon?
by
I don't see the Dijon. Look up, like, right? That's such a clear example of the invisible labor. But when you have a conversation with people, you say, what are the roles and the responsibilities? Like, who's showing up in the relationship and kind of taking care of this, right? The other partner will say, I do a lot here. I do so much here. But it is not in any type of comparison to what she is more than likely to do because she's tracking everything silently.
Okay, so then here's the counter to that, Doc. Then there's our male audience is like, I pay the cost to be the boss. I pay all the bills.
We seeing some differences in that, though, but...
Right, for sure, absolutely. But for those households where he like, baby, I go to work every day, and I pay every bill. You ain't got. You ain't worried about a mortgage. You ain't worried about a car note. You ain't worried about a nothing. It's already there. All I'm asking for you is to manage what I'm bringing in. What do you say to
You hear
that?
that language? All I'm asking?
All I'm asking.
All I'm asking is this, right?
Yeah.
So there's a devaluing of domestic responsibilities because it's seen as that's all you're doing is keeping house and keeping home, right? That doesn't factor in emotional
and it's
labor.
so the word laborious, that is what, to be a stay-at-home mother, wife, that is...
You know how much you have to continue to be tracking, right, in a way. So I'll also kind of give some so just a quick note, right, that the families and the dynamics and the racial dynamics and the socioeconomic structures, right, and where that can typically be the case is white families, right? Black families largely have not been able to have any stay-at-home thing, and I'm working and you're not working. We have not had the resources to be able to do that due to systemic racism, oppression, all those kinds of things, right? So oftentimes doesn't apply to us. We're seeing it more and more, but that is not something that we can really use in the Black community as a I do this, right? Most Black families have to be 2,
we
3,
working together, absolutely.
Right, households where we're all contributing the money, and we're even sometimes when the kids get older, they start contributing stuff, right? We have not had the privilege to be able to have that dynamic. That's mostly white folk. Like I said, it's changing, but that's still largely white folk, having one person who is navigating everything financially and having another person have all the other loads. I just want to name that piece, right? So when that stuff begins to come into Black households, right, we're already kind of seeing this as like a new structure, a new family structure for us because we are typically egalitarian because we've had to be. The other piece is that, yes, the way in which it's usually communicated is in this devaluing way. I do all of this, right? All you gotta do, right, is this, right? So there's one, the devaluing that's there. And 2, that structure can work for some families, right? What's the communication like? Are we in agreement, right, that these things equate in some way around that? And we're still not having a conversation about that not being enough, right? At one point, because we didn't have more criteria for our romantic relationships, the finances were enough. But now, as we are seeing the impact of a lack of emotional intelligence and lack of emotional connection, now we're saying that's not enough. The money isn't enough because, baby, I can make money.
Yeah.
If we hadn't made this decision, I'd be in, right, the external workforce and I'd be making money. I can now do a side hustle over here and do this and do these kinds of things, right? That is no longer enough. You bringing home a paycheck and paying for this is because maybe we've made this arrangement, but not because I can't do it. It's because I made a choice to serve the family in this way. Yeah. Right? So it's this other piece about, yes, men are required to do, in general, right, are being required to do and offer more. But that's not going to cut it for a lot of relationships now to say, well, I do this. Because money is that. But that doesn't care for the internal parts of me. And as we see that this has become more and more important as we are valuing ourselves as emotional beings more, we're seeing that, oh, yeah, I feel really lonely in this relationship. All right. But because he does this and does this and does this, I've learned and I've been taught to accept that because generations above us have said, well, he come home.
Girl, he come home every day.
Ain't your bills paid? What you complaining about?
Listen.
What are you complaining about? Because there are men who won't do that. And so it makes it difficult for us to say that we want more.
I have had to check myself in some of my friendships. I've had to check myself.
In what ways?
Because my sister is a stay-at-home wife and mother.
Okay.
And there are moments when she's, said some things and I've been like, I mean, but you don't have to worry about, you ain't got to worry about your house, your car, and she's like, Brandi, so then it gets that pushback to me because I'm devaluing in that moment. Yeah. And I've had to learn that in our relationship.
I can appreciate you naming that.
Because I've been like, there have been moments, when I was like, but what? You driving this, you living this. You don't have to go to work. You ain't got to be out here by yourself doing X,
and as
Y,
a single
Z.
person, I'm doing all those things
and
for myself.
And I'm literally baby.
I wish I didn't have to take care of these things.
Balls to the wall. Okay. And I'm sitting up here. So there have been moments that I've had to realize, and Carly's had to express to me, like, wait, don't do that, though. Because I'm devaluing her because I'm like, girl, he come home every day. He do this. He do that. Girl, you ain't got to worry about that. What's the problem?
But coming home in what form and what state? You being in the house is what, right? So the difference between kind of presence and connection, right?
And
so
it's those moments.
Yeah, you can be physically
It's those moments
present,
of connection. Yeah.
If I don't think you're interested in me, if I don't think that, again, I can share kind of vulnerability with you, if you are not sharing vulnerability with me, you are another body in the house, right? And that can give some level of security in some ways, but that's not connection. That's not fulfilling in any way. Yeah. Right? So I imagine that some of that is that's what's being named is like, yeah, they're here, but what does it mean if you are not emotionally here? And as we connect more to our emotional selves and our emotional needs, we want those counterparts, right? In our romantic partners, in our friendships, we want somebody who has some skill to be able to have some depth, to have some expansion, right? We can talk about big things, we can talk about mundane things, but can we connect emotionally, right? Can you hold space for me when something is going on, or are you just physically present in the house and you think that that's enough because you've largely been taught that that is enough and you shouldn't want more. So now what happens for the women who want more? We tell them that they want too much.
You want too much.
Right? Yeah. And then when we get less and we're really unhappy and we're really depressed, then we say, well, you don't have a reason to be depressed, right? You got the things that society said you're supposed to get. Right, you have a romantic partner, you have children, you drive this, or you whatever it is, right? So then we invalidate the sadness and the loneliness and the disconnection and the isolation. We say you don't get to feel those things.
Yeah, and
you can't win.
And that's the part, that even as women, what we do in relationship with our friends, because we do it, we invalidate them. Yep. What you complaining about?
What you got to complain about?
Look at where you live. Look at what you drive. Look at what you do. Look at who you around. Look at your position. Look at your title. Yeah. We do all those things because we've been so conditioned to believe that this is what brings value and connection and a fulfilling life.
And this is success. And this kind of success equals fulfilling life, right? And I think we also struggle as a larger society with being able to hold space and allow multiple things to coexist, right? So we'll say, like, you're ungrateful because you're complaining about these things, right? But that's because we are not allowing room for gratitude to exist with things that are lacking. But it shows up in parent-child dynamics, particularly adult child and parent dynamics, when if I say anything to my parents about something that I didn't like when I was younger, right, I'm ungrateful because I gave you a house and I gave you this and I gave you this and I gave you this. I'm like, yeah, but you never talked to me about anything. You never asked me if I wanted that, right? But for the fact that you had clothes and you always had food and you don't grow up like I did, you should just be grateful versus, but I didn't feel connected to you. I'm a daughter of Caribbean immigrants. Emotional maturity ain't the thing. Ain't the thing there, right? But time and time again, it's like, well, you got to do this and you got to go to this school. I was this provider, right? But it's just like, again, I get to decide what provisions are actually what I need. And it doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for those things. It means that something was also missing. Yeah. You didn't help me with no emotional intelligence. All right. My therapist has said, like, I don't know how you were able to be this emotionally intelligent given what you came from.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't have anybody talking to you about emotions when you were younger. You didn't have anybody you can cry to about anything. There were frustrations in school. It was just, you got to get these grades, you got to do this, we'll make the money for you to do this, and that is it, right? It didn't foster me as an emotional, and a full kind of emotional. I had to figure that out on my own, right, outside of my household. But the rhetoric is, well, you had your needs met. So how dare you tell me that I didn't do this or this or this? And it's just like, well, that is the truth. But because you don't see value in it, right, you are telling me that I shouldn't see value in it, right? And when people are telling you that something is missing, they're telling you that something is valuable here that I need, and it's not our responsibility to say you shouldn't need that. And that's oftentimes what we tell people, you shouldn't need that because you have this. What that got to do with that?
That is so good. Because I think we can all look at so many relationships that we have, whether they're our family, our friends, our partner, significant other. And we can find those moments, if we're being honest, and you're like, oh, I've done that.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
We've all done it. And what we see more than likely with women is why the statistics look a little different. We then internalize that. I must be doing something wrong where I don't feel better about this. So I need to, when we swing it over to Black women, I need to work harder to feel better.
Oh my God.
About this.
That is like literally, Doc, I was having this conversation 2 weeks ago with my sister, and I was like, I mean, I just need to work harder in my life. And why, and the nerve of me to want to come home and sit down and lay on the couch and watch Netflix. And Carly was like, Brandi, first of all, relax. Second of all, harder where?
Yeah.
Harder why? Why do you feel like that? And why do you feel like you don't deserve a day to just sit on your couch and watch Netflix if that's what you are? That is what your body, that is what your spirit is telling you need to do. Why are you telling yourself, I should be?
Yep. And in order for me to get to those things, I've got to work more. And again, these are societal messages. These are not things that Black women made up, right? Again, we have been the laborers. We have been the mules of this country and world for centuries. We know hard work. We know it in many ways too well. But because we're so used to over-functioning, right, and being able to control for things, right, then when things don't happen, the demand upon ourselves that we also receive from others, people have told us our whole lives, you need to work.
Work harder.
You need to work harder. So if something is not happening in a certain way, I need to work harder to make this person like me, to make myself look a certain way. I need to work harder at work. I need to do better with these kids. I need to We end up over-functioning. And that's the over-functioning piece. Yeah. Right? If I over-function, if I make sure that you don't experience any distress, you're going to love me and you're going to stay around in this way. Right? If I make sure that you are never disappointed in me, which means I shapeshift all the time.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? To try to control for you being disappointed in me and always want to make you interested in me and always kind of do the next thing that you like and whatever it is, right? Always be there for the kids in these ways. Drop everything at a dime, right, to do these things. Then I equate that to me being irreplaceable. But what we also see is that people will replace you.
Girl, everybody's replaceable. Look around. They might not be here next week.
Yeah, and it's not up to you. And it's not up to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not mature enough. I'm not grown enough. I couldn't let it go past.
But we try to control things by over-functioning, right?
Yeah.
And then, again, people end up in my office because they are significantly depressed. They are anxious because there's too many things to control for, and they can't navigate all of it. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not drinking water. They're anemic. They don't go outside. Whatever other things are happening in their body. Their friendships are not fulfilling, right? They're doing all these things that the world told them will fulfill you, and they're still not feeling fulfilled. And they come in saying, well, I got to help me kind of figure out what I got to do differently and kind of what I got to do more of. And when I say you need to do less, it's very jarring for a lot of Black women to do less.
To do less.
Because they feel less than if they're doing less. They have no marker. They have no role models for doing less, for resting, right, for taking a break. Taking a break feels very threatening to them, right? There's a lot of the anxiety that comes in. There's a lot of thoughts that come in, like, I should be doing this. That half hour or that hour I just watched White Lotus, I should have been doing this or this. Or I'm going to do stuff while I'm doing White Lotus. I got my computer out. I'm triple screening. I got my computer, my phone, and the TV. Right, while I'm doing these things, right? I'm live to it, I'm whatever it is, right?
I'm folding the laundry because let me get that done. I can check that off the list.
I've got to fit everything in. So when I'm talking to clients about monotasking and the benefits of because you're not really multitasking when you think you are. You're doing everything half-assed.
Yeah.
Right? I can't tell you half them characters' name in White Lotus.
I can't either.
I know the storylines, but like somebody's name is Victoria. I was reading that this morning, and I realized like, oh, Victoria is that's the mom. That's the Ratliff mom. I didn't know her name the whole season.
Yeah.
I know her character. I didn't know her name.
I think I just learned it now.
Right? Because I'm pretty sure you were doing something while watching the episode.
Yeah, I was doing my notes. I had my tablet out.
Yep.
So I was doing notes.
Yeah.
I was researching something else. I was putting a whole mock-up in Chat GPT.
Yes, we are constantly multitasking,
Yeah.
right? Because we're trying to fit everything in versus deciding that I get to do something just this solo thing. Because one, I'm going to do it better. It's going to sink in deep, particularly if it's something meaningful. I'm going to be more present with it, right? And again, there's things that we're not worried about making mistakes at, but I'd be having to rewind TV shows.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really
sure.
paying attention. I don't know people's names. I missed something in some way because I looked down at something. I'm looking at my phone doing this, right? So we actually end up taking more time to do stuff, right? Because we're more likely to make mistakes when we're monotasking in some way. But this is the difficulties, right, that come with Black women being over-functioning for so long because the world has demanded so much of us that we don't know how to take the breaks. We don't have role models for that, right? We saw women, right, the generations above us doing so much, right? So I'll oftentimes talk to a lot of my women clients who are saying that I'm doing this to make this much money. I'm getting this. I got my 401k here. I got 2 side hustles over here. I'm thinking about doing this business a consultation. I said, well, why are you working so hard? Why are you doing this to kind of make so much money and do all this stuff? I'm doing this because I need freedom. I'm just like, well, when you gonna be free?
Yeah.
Because every new job you pick up, every new degree you get, every new whatever it is, you're not getting no closer and closer to freedom. You keep filling it in with more stuff. So if you're doing all this stuff to be free, when you gonna act like you're free? And then they say, well, I am. I said, you don't sound free. You sound really stressed. You're up all times of night doing all types of things, and you're socializing, and you're an organizer of the friend group, and you're this, and you're the breadwinner in the household. Because remember, we can't have too many stay-at-home of us. It's changing, but it ain't there yet, right? And you're managing all the kids' schedule, and now this kid want to be a multi-sport. You in sports all year. Like, what are we? You're doing a lot. So what does freedom actually look like to you? And if freedom looks like rest, you're going to have to take it, right? The world and your schedule is not going to give you rest. My schedule doesn't give me rest. I have to take it and put it in there and deal with the discomfort of not doing something else. I have to take it, right? You will. Oftentimes, I think we are waiting for rest to come. We're waiting for a free weekend. I'm not going to get a free weekend unless I make it free. Because every time somebody asks me to do something, if I keep saying yes, there goes my weekend. Yeah. There goes my month of April weekends because I kept saying yes to stuff. I'm going to have to say no to something and actually sit my behind down. Yeah. Right?
Doc, I know I could talk to you all day.
I know.
But we're going to have to rest.
We're going to have to rest our mouths, rest our vocal cords. We're going to have to rest.
We're going to have to rest.
Yes.
You are not going to get out of this seat, though, before I ask you one word that you are committed to in this season of your life.
And it can't be a word we just talked about?
It can be whatever word you want.
Okay.
It's your word.
I'm going to go to a different word that maybe I was thinking about before. But my word, are you talking about my personal season?
Yeah, what you're committed to in this season of your life.
What I'm committed to in this season.
One word.
Is acceptance. And what I mean by acceptance, I think we get acceptance kind of mixed up with like being okay with stuff. Acceptance isn't about being okay, right? It's about not fighting against what is, right? And I'm in a what is season of stuff, and I've had to make a lot of adjustments around some things and just accept that, oh, this is what life looks like now. And accepting it actually allows me to create something different in it instead of kind of trying to pull what was going on before into it. But acceptance also requires pause. Like I got to sit in the discomfort of not wanting this particular circumstance, right? Acceptance looks like, I don't want this. I don't like this. This is awful. This feels terrible. Who asked for this? I didn't stand for da-da-da-da, right? Acceptance looks like, but it is. This is happening now. You get to make a decision about what you do with what is happening. Yeah. Versus what you want to be happening, what you think should be happening, what you think should have happened a different way. Acceptance looks like dealing with the what is and making the next decision you can in the actual what. So sometimes they call it acceptance, sometimes they call it radical acceptance, right? But it's this kind of fierce presence of this is what is going on right now, and this is what I can do with this. So I'm in a season of painful acceptance.
Painful acceptance.
It's painful, but it's here.
Yeah.
It's here. I can't do anything but lean into the pain, because if I fight it, it's going to be more painful. And the pain will subside.
That's it right there.
But you got to let it hurt first.
Yeah. The pain will subside, but you got to let it hurt first.
You got to let it hurt first.
Dr. Ayanna Abrams, this was such a great conversation.
We do part 3, 4, and 5. I mean,
you're going to have to come back. This was so good. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Bought Empowers, another good one for the books. Be sure to send this to someone who needs to accept the things that are right now in their life. Not what was, but what is. I'm your girl, Brandi Harvey. Until next time, eat well, give a damn, move your body every single day. Peace.